Hello, good evening and welcome to SKTV. You're watching the Manipur Files. I'm your host, Utpala Longjam. Tonight's topic is fresh violence, a tactic of diversion. The ongoing violence in Manipur can indeed be seen as a complex issue with political, ethnic and social tensions contributing to the unrest. Whether it's a distraction tactic or not depends on the perspective you adopt. From one viewpoint, violent events could serve as a diversion for other critical issues that require attention, such as governance failures, social injustice, or economic challenges. On the other hand, the violence may also reflect deeper-rooted systemic problems, including ethnic conflicts, the impact of insurgencies, and historical grievances. These factors, when compounded by political interests, can exacerbate tensions and fuel a cycle of violence that distracts from resolving underlying issues. After the Mizoram Chief Minister spoke about breaking parts of India, Myanmar, and Bangladesh in the US on September 4th, and national media and Indians began raising questions, the Kuki terrorist groups have started shooting and killing innocent Meitei civilians. Is this an attempt to divert media attention? The central forces were unable to protect unarmed Meitei civilians, particularly farmers in the foothill areas, from the atrocities committed by the extremists. Manipur's peace remains fragile, with tensions simmering beneath a temporary calm as ethnic conflicts and political uncertainties persist. The struggle for stability is ongoing, with communities yearning for lasting harmony amid unresolved issues. It would be essential to focus on addressing these root causes and finding long-term solutions or peace and stability in the region. Our topic is fresh violence, a deliberate tactic for diversion. We have a panel of esteemed speakers here to shed light on whether recurring acts of violence are being used to distract from the pressing issues impacting the region. Let's dive in and explore this question from all angles. Let me begin by welcoming our panelists. We have on my left, we have Mr. N. IBUNGOCHOUBI, Executive Editor, Manipur Mail. Welcome to the Manipur Files.
Good evening, Utpala.
Next, we have Mr. RINKU, KHUMUKCHAM, Editor, Imphal Times. Welcome to the Manipur Files, Mr. RINKU, KHUMUKCHAM. And last but not the least, we have Mr. PRADIP, PHANJOUBAM, Editor, Imphal Review of Arts and Politics. Welcome to the Manipur Files, Mr. PRADIP, PHANJOUBAM. A warm welcome once again to our three panelists, and we are privileged to have you here in the studio with us today. Let's begin right away. My first question will be for Mr. IBUNGOCHOUBI. Whenever peace talks or discussions about restoring normalcy in the state arises, most recently following the Mizoram Chief Minister's controversial statement on cultural unity at the cost of national unity, a widespread sentiment emerges that Kuki narco-terrorists have initiated attacks across Manipur. This pattern of escalating violence seemingly aimed at diverting attention has become increasingly noticeable. What are your thoughts on this?
Utpala, I would view it from my own angle. The very first thing that we have to understand is whether the government, whether the central government or the Manipur government, do they have a plan? Do they have something in mind how there can be a resolve? How can they bring about a resolve? In the absence of a roadmap being spelled out by the government, whether it is the union government or the central government, I would say it is the government because it is the same political party. The union government, which of course they do not have the majority, they still is a BJP-led government, and Manipur also is a BJP government. Yeah. So I would say the government of this BJP government, they have not spelled out at least whether they have a vision, they have a plan or something in mind. That is the very reason why we say that there is a complete failure from the administration point of view. When we talk of a government, we talk of a government when there is a government. When we talk of governance, we talk of a governance when there is a government. We cannot talk now of governance because in my view there is no government as of now. the primary duty of the government is to protect the life and property of the citizen of this very country. For the last so many months, since May last year, the government has not kept up, or they have not been able to perform their normal duty of protecting the life and property of any citizen. The tragedy that we face today is when we report, we are not reporting as one human being. I think that is the biggest tragedy today, which I suppose is the biggest challenge today in Manipur. We are naming the person's community, which I think is the biggest tragedy in our society today.
Right. Okay.
The media has been compelled in the last so many months, whether he is from this community,
Right.
whether she's from this community, even to some extent when we know basically the basic ethics of media, we do not mention the community. However, what has compelled the media, the civil organizations to mention the particular community? I think this divisive force has come about because of the failure of the administration. I think this is first that we have to understand. And when we talk of tactics of diversion, or whether the issue has been sidelined for some other thing, I think that is a secondary thing. The primary issue is whether the government has in its own wisdom, has something in mind how they can bring about a resolve. I think that is something that is very important. Rather than at some point of time, I think whenever we have to say that some issues are taking away the main issue from that particular what we should be discussing, I think we have to be focusing on the failure of the government primarily. In the last almost more than 1.5 years,
Right.
you have not been able to protect the life and property
Absolutely.
of a citizen. When a person dies, when a person is harmed, we have to understand that he or she is an Indian. Whether it is in Manipur, whether it is in Nagaland, whether
Right.
it is in Bihar, anywhere. So the primary duty of the government is to protect life and property of every single citizen. So I would say that when we talk about, whenever we talk of peace, the question is, who is talking about peace? None. Nobody is talking about peace. And sometimes when we hear, when we listen, when we get some report that there is a process of being, in that process of peace, I think there is a process where even those who would like to progress on the basic system of beginning a dialogue for a peace, they have been antagonized to some extent. And if the government is saying that we are doing something about peace, I think we are just talking in a very hollow sense. There is no sense of peace being initiated by the government. So from that perspective, I think the very term of tactic of diversion or sidelining the key issue, we have to first focus on the failure of the government, the governance. At the same time, do they have that political acumen to give a vision to the people that these are the things that we would like to do in the next 1 year? These are the things that we will take up in the next couple of days. I think those should be the first thing we should be discussing. Let the government spell out from the union government and the state government and tell the people that these are the steps that we would be initiating at least. So we know, unless they speak about what they want to do, we also cannot discuss the very modality or the dynamics of what the government is planning. So I think sometimes after a lull, after a lull something happens, and then again there is a lull, something happens.
Yes.
I think these are issues which we are compelled to say that there is no governance. Let there be governance and let there be rule of law first. And I think we should be focusing on the very aspects of bringing the system, bringing administration at every single door, saving the people, saving the property. Then I think whether you have issues coming up today, you have some freak incidents happening elsewhere, whether the security forces, their works have been impaired. I think I would say that government should spell out, number one, what they have in their mind. at least we can dig into, we can dive into, and we can delve into the dynamics of what the government wants to offer to the people. I think I would like to make my opening remark like that, so that my fellow friends.
Right, thank you so much for your views. I'll come back to you. My next question for Mr. RINKU KHUMUKCHAM. Mr. IBUNGOCHOUBI mentioned about naming community. Now the question again, here we're going to talk about the two women who were from different communities. They were killed in separate suspected militant attacks. One was a 31-year-old Mar woman in Jiribam, and the other a 29-year-old Meitei woman. Again here, the community has been mentioned, as our panelists said. And the Meitei woman, identified as Sapam Sophia, was shot dead allegedly by Kuki militants while working in a paddy field in Saiton area of Kumbi, Bishnupur district yesterday. Now, do you think that women are being deliberately targeted to cause more suffering and garner more attention, or do you think this was just they were just victims of random firing?
In every crisis, women and children are always the victims. They were always a sufferer. So when we discuss about the incident recently happened, that 34 years old woman killed yesterday, and then the one that killed there in Jiribam, you know, these are all fallout of the violence crisis that's happening out here. So it's natural that the weaker section or the vulnerable section, they were always affected by this kind of crisis. But when we look into the timing and the pattern of this kind of attack to the Meitei village by the Kuki militants, you know, we will be, you know, we certainly can find out what actually is it a sporadic violence, or is it a spontaneous violence, or is it something that they already plan and do it in, by taking the time. For example, you see in 26 May last year, when there is an attack at the periphery, say for example PHANJOUBAM village, there were attacks everywhere elsewhere in all the periphery region. Similar way on 28 May also similar attack continue, and then later after the visit of the Union Home Minister Amit Shah, the day he left, we witnessed a lot of attack going on, a lot of fighting going on between the Meiteis and the Kuki militants. So militants, but they were fighting, there were killings, and even the police commandos were being killed, the BSF were killed. And what I want to bring up here is that the timing of the attack. Timing of the attack was after the Union Home Minister assured to bring peace within 15 days. He already told to the media that he will come back within 15 days and solve the matter. This was what he told. Yes. And as soon as he left, the attack started. Then later, this kind of things happen all these 18 months. Any attack, it happened, this was all coordinated attack. Everywhere else, they attack. So when we discuss about the attack that yesterday it happened, causing death to a woman who is in the field, who was in the field, trying to harvest the paddy, we can simply take that at the same moment, there was also an attack at Lamlai, that somewhere at Lamlai, the Thanapokpi area. So they were firing, and still the firing is going on till now. We haven't reported. Right. So why this coordinated attack again? This September, there were a lot of debate about the Mizoram Chief Minister talking about delivering peace against the Indian integrity in both Maryland and Indianapolis. So there were a lot of discussion about this, and when we study about the peace, there is one sentence he used that all the Kuki-Jo Mizo people will come under one leadership. It is not wrong coming under one leadership. So it seems like the way he talked and the incident that happened here, so it seems like there is only one command on what has been happening here in the state of Manipur.
Right.
So the bigger dream that they see in Maryland, when Laldohama, the chief minister, spoke about deliver speech, he told about the integrity of all the Kuki-Jaw people from Bangladesh, Myanmar, and India under the Indian Union. This was what he told. But when it comes to Indianapolis, he talked about something to form a nation, a separate nation for Kuki-Jaw people, what he termed. So the idea behind the attack, behind the uprising here by the Kuki militants here, all unitedly under one command, we are seeing that this actually is somewhat related with the speech delivered there,
Right.
which is actually in violation of the Article 19 Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution. What Mr. Laldohama had talked about, the Union Home Minister had stated that they will review this piece. However, it is open to all. It is available on the website of the Mizoram government. And then the last part, when we, even a law student, even a political science student will surely know that it's in violations of Article 2, Article 19, Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution, which say that we cannot separate India. We cannot talk about disintegration of India. It is, it's a punishable.
Yes.
And after all, under the new law, that is the BNS, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, there are several sections that such speech can be punished. So what is surprised now is that the central government, which is a Union Ministry of Home Affairs, is silent on. It only say that they will just review the what he had spoken there in America.
Yes.
So beyond that, there is nothing happen, and then neither do they. There is any plan which she from both sides, from both the state government and the central government, planning for ending it, planning to resolve these issues. We don't see any way forward. We are seeing something that we will be stuck here in this little valley. We will be here and they will be staying for long, and resolving this matter will take years. This is what the central minister while talking to at the parliament also had mentioned. The Union Home Minister himself said it will take some 6, 7 years, 9 years like that. Every crisis took like that. When he did not mention about the Godhra, the riots, which ended in 3 days when Narendra Modi was the chief minister. They wanted to, either they neglected the northeast part, or they wanted some other else, or they are taking advantage of this conflict, causing suffering to the women and the children especially, to end what they call insurgencies movement out here.
Absolutely right.
And when Laldohama claimed that the Kuki-Jaw people cannot be separated, we have been unjustly separated by the British, they said. But is there a history of them? History of the Mizo people, the Kuki-Jaw people? Is there a land of their own in the history? For Manipur, when we look back in 1826, there was an international treaty which says that we have an international status, we have a sovereign status which has been recognized by the international community. And we haven't, left by the British and regaining or restoring our sovereign structure. And then we also had our own state assembly. Right. We have a complete boundary. How can, do you ever heard about Kuki Mizo people having a separate boundary of their themselves and getting freed from the British when British left? Is there any boundary of them?
Right.
According to the new law, according to the United Nations Charter, Section 2, Clause 4, you cannot simply, because of the ethnicity, which stay in the other country. Say, for example, Meitei are staying here in Imphal. In Kasar also there are many Meiteis. In Myanmar also there are many Meiteis. We cannot simply claim this territory as a Meitei territory.
Yes.
This is again in violation of this UN Charter, which is accepted by all. India is also a signatory to this charter. So claiming something like a nation structure, the violation of the international law itself is also a crime, both internationally and as per the Indian Constitution, he has committed something very serious crime, which is pouring fuel to this crisis. What is happening here? Actually, this movement has an agenda, and they're trying to push up this agenda, and it seems like there is something. It is correlated. The speech there, the media the debate over the speech in the national TV, and they wanted to show something that we have this strength, this is our land. These are their words, which have no evidence, which have no supportive historical evidence.
Okay.
In this, let me for this part, I'll just say that there is some correlation between this attack and the attack. I'll simply use this word, the attack by Mizoram CM against the integrity of India.
Thank you so much for your views. Continuing with what Mr. KHUMUKCHAM just said, Mr. PHANJOUBAM, let's talk about the September 4 statement by Mizoram Chief Minister Laluma. External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal, during the weekly briefing, stated that he had not yet seen Laluma's comments and would respond once they had clarity on the matter. He added, we have, I'll quote his words, we have had issues in the India-Myanmar border region due to the situation in Myanmar's security. We have previously discussed border fencing and other proposals, so I will get back to you once we have more clarity on this. This is what Mr. Jaiswal said. So now we have, the question now is, will the central government, as Mr. KHUMUKCHAM said, the central government is mute, they're not saying anything. Will they remain a mute spectator to such traitorous statement, as it was also mentioned that it's a punishable crime? Or what are the implications of allowing such rhetoric to go unaddressed, and how might it affect the national security and unity?
No, I think that's for the central government to decide whether it's a threat or just tomfoolery. That they will decide. And also, we have to look at it from a broader perspective. What he said there, for his defense will be clear, that he was saying that we will have a nation, and the nation and the state are different things, which is why people now normally refer to the nation state. You have a nation as well as a state. But if you're talking only about the nation, then it can mean something else. It can mean that you are a people, but then you don't have to have a state. You don't have to have. You don't have to be bound by a boundary. Just in the case of the most prominent example would be the case of the Samis in Latin America. In the Scandinavian countries. The Scandinavian countries as well as Russian Federation, they live in many different countries, and once upon a time they had no country. They were just nomads living everywhere. So they just happened to land in every state. So now what the state consciousness has come about. So now what has been agreed upon is for them to have a Sami parliament, which is non-territorial. You can just have, and these examples are seen here in India as well. You take the case of the Sikhs. You have the Sikh Prabandhak Gurdwara committee, to which every Sikh follower of the Sikh religion is loyal to, and that is an Amritsar. But everybody is Sikhs in Canada, Sikhs in London, Sikhs in Imphal. They would all be loyal to that particular thing. So it's a emotional kind of a binding, but nothing as a state. So when you talk about a state, then it becomes a problem. But Laluma, whether he meant a state as well, probably that's what the Home Ministry was saying, that we will decide whether he was meaning that he will establish a state. He did say we will have a nation, and also that we cannot fight India, Bangladesh and Myanmar at the same time. So it's a very ambiguous kind of statement, whether he meant a state as well, or whether he was just saying that we will have a unification of the a cultural kind of a unification, which Professor Roy Berman talks about when he was talking about the Sami. So it's not really, I think it will be preposterous for us to presume that he meant something, and without actually studying the context of that particular statement. So let's leave that to the central government to decide. It's and also there is not much that Manipur can do or should be doing.
But do you think there's a connection between what's happening at the national level and the fresh violence that has just started?
I think the fresh violence is more of a tit for tat. What happened in Jiribam, it happened again, and probably it'll happen somewhere else again. So it's going to just carry on. I think the best thing is for us to actually think of bringing back peace, so that none of these things can happen. And also, of course, there are other theories, that you have a demand, and then you fight for it, and then you believe that there is a reward at the end. That you keep fighting, and then at the end of it, you will have some reward. Then the fighting will continue. This is from a report by somebody called a scholar called Paul Collier. He was asked to write a report by the World Bank to write a report on conflict all over the world, and especially in the wake of the Al Qaeda and basically the Al Qaeda and also the Islamic State. So he wrote a report in which he said that conflict, and the title of that particular report is war as market. That is like a market. You have something to gain at the end, you'll keep fighting, and also you'll keep provoking so that the fight never ends. So here the same thing probably is happening, that you believe that there is going to be something at the end, and if you just lay down your arms, then you will get nothing. You fight and then you will get something. That kind of a incentive is probably what is egging on this conflict. So Paul Collier's suggestion is that the best thing is to make sure the message that there is no rewards at the end is reached to those conflicting parties. And when there is no reward, nobody will want to fight. So that's basically what. So I think this message has to be very clear. There's no reward. If you want to fight, carry on. You'll only suffer. You'll get nothing and nothing more. But ultimately, there is no reward at the end. That's one message. The other thing, of course, is what IBUNGOCHOUBI also said about the absence of the state. The state is whoever is saying anything, the state is supposed to be present.
Right.
State is supposed to say that no, you have no right to do that. You have no right to wield arms to anybody. In fact, this is well known that the state holds monopoly over legitimate violence. That it is the only institution or statutory body which can exercise coercion, legitimate coercion. Nobody else can. So if somebody is exercising that power, then that is illegal, which is what, again, Max Weber said, that the state has monopoly over legitimate violence, that all arms should be in the hands of the state. And if there are arms in the civilian hand, that should be with permit. You have a licensed gun, that's okay. But if you don't have any license, then that's illegal. Anything that's a weapon without license is illegal, because the state is supposed to hold monopoly over legitimate violence. When the state punishes somebody, that is illegitimate. But you cannot nobody else can do that. Anybody else does that, that is illegitimate. And this message should have been very clear from the beginning. Right. And in fact, in the first 2 weeks or earlier, they should have been clamping down, comprehensive clamping down. Nobody will be allowed to come out with weapons. Nobody will be allowed to hold weapons. That kind of a message should have been given earlier. Not just a message, but actually the state taking charge. Right. Then the violence will not have spread. Now the violence has spread. It has been here for a long time. It has created so much of bitterness, and those bitterness are also showing up. Apart from that reward business, about the reward at the end of a conflict. Apart from that, there is also the bitterness. You suffer so much here, you have lost so much, you will also try and inflict that same kind of injury to the other. Right. And that kind of logic is actually keeping the fight going on, which is again very unfortunate, because this thing will never end if that is allowed to carry on. And so there has to be some point where some kind of reconciliation is reached, where you can't bring back the dead, but the damaged properties and all, probably some kind of compensation or proportionate kind of compensation for that. And for the dead, of course, that's a bigger issue. The idea of mourning, and also the truth and reconciliation, which people like Nelson Mandela have been talking about. They have seen conflict much bigger than what is happening here.
Right.
In many ways, for us it's big, but from the outside world, it's not 200 people dead. You see, for instance, in the Israel conflict, over 40,000 people dead already. About 70% of them are women and children. So that kind of thing is happening. So for us, it's a big thing, but we also have to see from the lens of an outside observer, or maybe outside of India even. They won't even know this is happening. Maybe a few, say 0.1% of the world population will know what is happening here.
Right.
So I think we have to also look at it that way, that to be a little humble, in a sense that we don't command the world. We can only command our destiny, or our own destiny, and which is why I think the move to actually come forward and make peace is the best solution.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. I'll come back to you in the next round. Okay. So I'll come back to Mr. IBUNGOCHOUBI. Mr. PHANJOUBAM said made a very good point about no reward. So, but now the question is, a lot of people, the central security forces, I would say that a large number has been deployed to protect innocent life in Manipur. But let's say even if the terrain and the geographic structure of Manipur is preventing them from giving them the right protection, is it really difficult despite the buffer zone? Why were the central forces unable to protect the unarmed Meitei civilians, especially the farmers in the foothill areas, when we already know that such things are happening? What could have led to these the attack on the civilians? What could have prevented the armed forces, the central security forces, from providing security to these people?
There is something called commitment. If the government is there, they have to commit something to the people, for the people. Commitment would come with a sense of belonging. Commitment would come with a sense of wisdom. Whether they have the political acumen, whether they have the wisdom. What is most important is commitment to the people. If there are thousands of security personnel deployed in this small state called Manipur, I was told that about 20 to 25 battalions were deployed in Manipur to keep peace, which they failed, which means they were not committed. As I had also met my earlier remarks in SKTV, that whether you have 10,000 people, 1 lakh security personnel, or even more, what is more important is the political wisdom to commit to keep peace first. There has to be peace first. There has to be violence, less administration, at least to give confidence to the people that normalcy has come back.
Right.
Normalcy has not come back. Do the people of Manipur trust this government? That is one key question today.
Right.
Whether they are able to perform their duty, the primary duty. The rule of law is exhibited, the rule of law is shown to the people during difficult times. When the government of India, when the government of Manipur, when they are doing their mundane regular job, that is a mundane regular job. However, they have to prove to the people that the government exists, the rule of law exists during such difficult times. The only issue that we face today is we are talking of the wisdom of our political leaders.
Right.
If at all there is wisdom, if at all there is a commitment, the commitment has to come with experience. The commitment also has to come with honesty. Honesty is the key issue here in handling, in maintaining peace. I wonder if this particular government is committed. That commitment is missing. I keep repeating in almost all the discussions that when the Home Minister came, when the violence, when the issue started, he made a very bold statement that I would be back after 15 days to Manipur.
Right.
I think he was here for a couple of days during the elections.
Yes.
And the Chief Minister of Manipur, not being able to communicate to the Prime Minister, to the Home Minister, conveying their feelings, I do not know what kind of a political party is governing this country. If you say that you don't know what is happening or what your left hand has by your right hand being the same body, I think this is what I was referring to. We are looking at what is the future of our children.
Yes.
Precisely. What is the future that this particular government would be leaving behind for the generations to come? Do they have a solution? Or at least do they have something in mind so that when they die, when our generations go away, what kind of an atmosphere will they be leaving for our generations to come? I think peace is a misnomer. Peace being discussed by the government, I think it is a complete fallacy today, because they have not moved a step towards bringing about an understanding what peace would mean. If the government talks about peace, at least let the people know that what progress has visible, what is the visible progress. And the only irony and the tragedy that we all know, that when somebody talks about peace, I think this is not your quota, this is not your responsibility to talk about peace. I think peace in Manipur is for somebody else to talk about. Is that the issue that we are facing today? I think invariably the media is reporting the same, that when somebody has in some way or the other tried to initiate something within his or her own capacity to at least to reach out to people, I think if there has to be a progress in something, it is like a football match. I think the scorer has to score the ball only after the ball comes to him.
Yes.
However, the entire team of 11 people has moved around to pass the ball to him.
Right.
It is the simple dynamics of the game, whether it is a football or hockey or it is a part of a game. Now in politics too, in administration too, whether you are a small boy or a girl, whether you are a part of a society, civil society, whatsoever it is, the little link that you establish, the little communications that you establish with something else, I think that has to be appreciated, because people to people contact is primarily the most important aspect of what we understand as humanity. If the wife is not talking to the husband, if the father, if the parent is not talking to the children, I think the communication has broken down. Right. So to establish something, at least that communication has to begin. So from my perspective, I think if we talk about peace being initiated by the government, I think it is a misnomer. I think the people of Manipur are not that naive not to understand the misdemeanor of the government in their failure.
Right.
Utpala, what I would expect from the government from Delhi and Manipur is admitting that we had failed. I think this would be one step that people will at least start trusting them. To say sorry is not an act of cowardice.
Yes.
To say sorry is a sign of bravery, so that I will not commit the same mistake. I will not do the same thing again. To be able to say sorry is a brave state. So as a responsible government, so far I have never heard from Delhi or from Manipur that we had failed. We are a failure to the people, because whatever it is, big tolls that they might claim in the conversation, in the statements, the stoic silence of the Prime Minister of what is happening today, he would prefer talking about something else that is happening elsewhere, as if Manipur is not a part of this very country. I think whether the people of this country is concerned about what is happening in Manipur, or they are least bothered, that is a different issue for me. But as a person from this very state, I would expect, at least as a human person, as a human being, that the government should be brave enough to tell me that to the people that we as a government failed. That statement should come out.
Right.
At least I think I would be convinced that they failed, and that is a kind of an honesty which I think they should. And then there should be a continuous dialogue, unless you have a process of communication and
Right.
dialogue, nothing talks about. And peace is not somebody's responsibility as a quota.
Right.
It is everybody's responsibility.
Everybody's, right.
So I think the government also has to work out that every single person's individual effort is vital in Manipur, because we have to see what my child, what my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, what kind of an atmosphere we would be living behind.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think that is the key aspect that we need to understand.
Right.
And of course, these skirmishes or what is happening, attacks, and then attacks on some violent statements coming out, this is a part of a process. However, the system has to go on in providing administration for the people.
Right.
Utpala.
Right, big question. What kind of an environment are we leaving for our children for the future? Big question that we can ponder on. Okay, I'll move on to Mr. KHUMUKCHAM. We've seen that the Chin Kuki-Zo illegal immigrants continue to prevent Manipur from returning to normalcy. We've seen this over the past 18 months. And so how do you think that this ongoing 18-month conflict in Manipur will end, considering that it has evolved into a larger issue, which seems to be at a national security level rather than just the integrity of the state from the new developments that's been happening?
Actually, not all the Kuki peoples, civilian peoples, I mean, like violence. They don't want
Right.
this crisis because both are affected, largely affected. Many of our Kuki friends who have been settling here in Imphal, they have left their home.
Right.
They have, lost their job. Many of them lost their job. I mean, private entrepreneurs, and those are doing business or contract. They all lost their job. For 18 months, they have been doing nothing at all, except for those people who are working with the government sector.
Right.
Almost everyone is suffering.
Exactly.
Not only on the side of the Meitei people, both community are suffering. So, in reality, not all the Kuki communities would like this crisis to be happen. But there is an agenda of some of the kingmaker or some of the militia leader, who definitely like to create the idea of forming, coming of a Kuki Jogam land or Jewel land or something like that, a nation which the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, has already indicated about a white man planning for a Christian state in this portion, because they want to control this area, this side of the Southeast Asia, because China dominates, and everyone knows this is a big geopolitical game. So, while on their game, there are many who have been fleeing from Myanmar to here. We already know. We have already talked about this. The leader of the armed group KNO is from Myanmar.
Right.
We already know that some of the MPs have the Jeraro. These peoples have already entered to the state of India, state of Manipur illegally, and then how they procure their document and all this has been revisiting by the government. So when we talk about how we are going to end this, is that dialogue is the only process that will start ending. Without, the government has never tried to start a dialogue between these two communities. Once on October 15, there has been a big news about Kuki MLA, Meitei MLA, Naga MLA calling by this, using the term Kuki, Naga, and Meitei MLA by the so-called Ministry of Home Affairs. So these are like, something seems to be going on, and even in that meeting too, selected people are called. Selected people are invited. When Paulilian Haukif wrote, in somewhere I saw that when he talked to a news agency, he said that he has been invited through a phone call only, without formal invitation, and then he was not satisfied as the Home Minister, Union Home Minister, did not chair the meeting. He wanted the Home Minister to chair the meeting and then talk about a matter. He's in one word, he's true. He's right. Even though his demand might not be in favor of the Meitei MLA, the way he talked is right. It shows that the first meeting is not an initiative for holding a big talk. It was not even a talk. It was a preparation for a talk, but it was a selected MLA called by the Ministry of Home Affairs, convened by the Northeast in charge for the BJP, Sambit Parta, to initiate dialogue between these two communities. But later on, when he come back here, it seems that the very assumption of starting talk, next level of talk, where to go with the CSOs and all, all perish.
Yes.
We don't have anymore.
Exactly.
We don't, and it's some news report, some media report that the government is not planning to hold this second round of talk to initiate peace in the state. So until and unless the government and the central government wish this crisis will end in a bloodshed way, when people move up, when there is when the authorities sided this crisis happening out here, the Manipuri have suffered from a long time. You might be remembering about the Sahit Tarit Kontokpa, 7-year devastation of Manipur. During World War II, how we suffered. We were running away from it. This was a battlefield.
Right.
We were running here, and then we again reconcile ourselves and build up again in the nation. This happened. So the very essence of patriotism that runs through our ancestors' bands still continue to run through all of us here. So this crisis may create a big trouble, may suffer a lot to the Meitei people, but those people, if India government, if they decided this way, this will affect India geopolitical strategy also. This should be, this should also be understood by the authority of the Indian government.
Right.
That's what I want to suggest.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. KHUMUKCHAM. So, as a last question for tonight, for Mr. PHANJOUBAM, Manipur as a state has different ethnic communities, and in this ongoing 18-month conflict between the Meiteis and the Kukis, it's not the Meiteis, only the Meiteis or the Kukis communities that's been suffering. It's the entire state that has been suffering. So why do you think that the other three communities are hesitating in joining hands to bring peace to the state and work together towards progress, rather than sitting back and watching and the conflicting parties claiming that they are not a part of this fight?
No, I don't think that's true. There are people who actually reached out to both sides and all that, but the fighting parties are not listening. That's one of them. And because of so many other reasons, so many, as I had profiled in my earlier statement, that you still believe that there is a reward, so you want to keep fighting, or you believe there is something more to be done, which is why people are not listening to these peace initiatives. But otherwise, I think some effort has been made in this regard. But it's not coming through, and precisely because people are quite stubborn in their own stance, and we have seen peacemakers being beaten up. As for instance, in the Palel, there were people who came out, but they were silenced immediately, and those kind of things were happening. There are still people who don't want peace, which is probably why we keep see these flare-ups, that you keep the pot boiling, and then there will be something at the end. That's the same belief in the reward. That kind of thing is happening. And the other thing is, why are the center as well as the state may be totally incapable, that it's totally thrown out of gear. and also maybe it's been silenced by the center, that the state will act only as a proxy of the center. So why is the state not acting proactively? That they have formed a buffer which is not doing everything that it should be doing. It cannot also, if people are using sniper, those kind of weapons can't be stopped by just forming a buffer. You have to do active operations and all that, but those kind of things are not happening. And also, why is the state, Indian state as such, not clamping down on the conflict? I'm not saying on one side or the other, just clamping down the whole thing, the state taking charge and not allowing anybody to act illegally, to possess arms and all that. Those kind of things should have happened. So maybe there was a game plan in the beginning to have this thing carry on and then make all the insurgents join in and then corner them and then have some kind of a negotiated settlement for not just for this thing. This one is just an opportunity. The bigger one would have been, if this speculation is true, the bigger one have been to rope in all the insurgents, Meitei insurgents especially, because if you look at the northeast, there are only two groups of insurgents who have not come to the negotiating table. One is the Alpha Independent, led by Paris Boro, and the other are the Meitei insurgents. So probably they were waiting, if this hypothesis is true, probably they were waiting for the insurgents to join in a big way so that they can be cornered here and then brought to some kind of an agreement or some peace talks and all that. But that failed, and probably this was planned before the parliamentary elections so that you can have something to go to the elections with, not just in Manipur but the nation, that we have made peace with so many underground people and all that. That kind of claim probably they were planning, but that misfired badly, and the conflict still continues. And now what's going to happen is when the conflict continues and also the state, Indian state as such, not acting, there could be another plan. They probably think that the conflict will end on its own. People get tired and then they will just back out and they'll end, which is what happened to the Naga-Kuki conflict. There was no truce, nothing. People got tired and then slowly it just came back to that status that we call peace, which is not actually peace in many ways. In international relations, this is known as the frozen conflict, that the conflict has not ended, but it's still just frozen. So, and as in the case of, for instance, South Korea and North Korea, they were at war. And they didn't sign any treaty or anything, but the war just ended because they got tired. So it's a frozen conflict. Anytime it can flare up. So that thing could be happening here as well. That the Indian state is also looking for that easy way out. They'll get tired. They will just settle down, and that's it. That's the peace. But that kind of peace, frozen peace, is dangerous because the conflict has officially not ended. So what's going to happen is all the grievances will keep ticking like a time bomb, and then when another time will come when there's enough tension, it'll explode again. So that is what the idea of the frozen conflict is about. You've seen this in Israel, Palestine, the Palestinians and Israel. They will come down, they'll get tired, and then they will just settle down for a while. At the end, when the tension builds up, again it will flare up because there's no permanent kind of settlement of the problem, agreement that these are the limits and these are those areas where nothing can be crossed. Some kind of settlement has to be brought formally for there to be a lasting peace. Otherwise, it'll just remain as frozen peace, as in the case of I've given those examples. So many in the world that a conflict which has never ended, but still there's no violent outbreaks. And the danger of that is that violent outbreak can come about any time in the future, and I think that's going to happen. That is what people are looking for in the Meitei Kuki conflict as well. They'll get tired, they'll just back out. And also there is another thing. I had mentioned this earlier. Also, the same mistake was made in 1993 when the war broke out in Bosnia, and the Serbs and the Albanians. They were fighting a very bitter war, genocidal war against each other, and the international community was about to intervene, said this has to be stopped. Everybody agreed, UN agreed, and also the NATO was roped in. They were going to do that, but then what happened was Bill Clinton was the president of the United States at the time, and they have a lot of say. So Bill Clinton got a gift from somebody, a book called Balkan Ghost, written by a famous author with the Robert Kaplan, who has also written this Revenge of Geography and all that. So, and in that book, it is said that these are primordial conflict. These are primordial conflict. There's nothing much you can do about it. You stop them now, they'll fight again. They're not rational beings. It's like cats and dogs fighting. There's no way you can stop them. You just separate them, and that's it. There's nothing more you can do because they will never agree. That kind of very condescending attitude. And Bill Clinton actually followed and they backed out. They didn't intervene immediately. 1 year later, they intervened after much damage was done. Because and I think that kind of thing is happening here as well. The center is looking with a condescending eye. These people, they'll fight. No, they will not compromise. They let them get tired and just back out. That kind of mistake they're making, which is why that big intervention is not coming even now.
Okay, that's very unfortunate. Let's hope that we do something positive does come up for Manipur. So that brings us to the end of our debate for today. As we wrap up, it's clear that these incidents not only impact local communities but also pose broader questions about accountability, transparency, and the role of responsible leadership. Now, I'd like to thank our panelists once again for their valuable insights and time for joining us in the studio tonight. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching SKTV. We hope you'll join us again next Sunday for the next English edition of the Manipur Files. I'm your host, Utpala Longjam, signing off for tonight. Good night.